All this good. Hello and welcome back to Take Back Time. On this show, I seek out people who are in the productivity profession, coaches, speakers, entrepreneurs, and sometimes also just enthusiasts, people who are interested in entrepreneur and have been an entrepreneur, have made their own mistakes, have come back through those mistakes and learned. And so today I'm excited to have Maxim Dsouza with us because he is a productivity enthusiast, and we're gonna dig in and understand why productivity is so important. Because you're listening as a guest because you want to be more productive. You want to work smarter. So the only way we can do that is to learn from others and build those best practices. And it doesn't matter where you go or who you talk to, you're going to find the ability to learn from someone else's experience. And so you have to be open to that. So I want you to open up your thinking cap today and welcome Maxim with us today. Hey.
Hey, Benny. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, tell us a little bit about, your journey and why productivity is something that you're fascinated about. If that's the right word, fascinated.
Yep, I think that's a perfect word. To begin with, I started my career in IT, and I'm still in IT, which I'll get to. I worked for a couple of years as a programmer, and I ran a startup, which was a tech startup, for 5 years. So we were into developing mobile and web applications, and we also had a couple of products of our own. So just for example, one of the products that we had back in India was a product like Yelp, which you have in US. But we were not limited to restaurants and services alone. We wanted to be a portal where you could have data of any brand at one place. So that was just one of the products that we developed. Overall, it was a roller coaster ride, lots of ups and downs, and we had a few successes. But primarily, overall, the business was a failure. So we didn't really manage to achieve the level of success that we intended to. And for the past 5 years,
hold on a second, though. I don't like when people use the word failure. So I just want to kind of reframe that for everybody who's listening, because I'm an entrepreneur and I've had businesses that didn't work out. I had a franchise for a kids play park and it didn't work out, but I guarantee you learned a ton. So I like to say there's no failure, only feedback, right? So that it's preparing you for the next venture that you might take and what you might be able to do with that because of the lessons that you learned. And I want to come back to those lessons, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so you had your first go at it, you had some successes, but it didn't work out the way that you wanted it to.
Absolutely.
So, well, let's talk about it here. What did you learn from that experience?
Oh, there were a ton of things to learn. I pretty much feel that since my entrepreneurship experience, I've really changed as a person itself. So in terms of running businesses, there was absolutely a lot to learn, which I won't get into the details of, because I think that's something that you learn when you're running a business, because there are challenges in terms of hiring, in terms of running operations, there is finances, there is people management. There are so many things to do. And after all this, you really have to get the business running, right? That's a core part of your job. So that's one. All of those areas I've learned a lot. But one of the things that I've really learned over that experience, which really helps me even today, is how to deal with people, right? It is not just at work. It is even in terms of your personal life. How do you make sure the other person understands your view, and how do you talk to people so that you're completely listening and paying attention to what the other person's interests are. And this journey, especially because it was long and tough, it has taught me a lot of patience, right? So I was really a person who was very restless. I wouldn't say I was short-tempered, but I was quick to react. But over time, by going through the journey that I've been through, now I'm really calm and patient, right? Even before reacting to something, I really understand that I shouldn't be spontaneous. And the more time I take to react, the better my reaction will be. So that is, I feel, the biggest lesson that I've learned over my entrepreneurship journey. And of course, the part of IT and leadership and people management and operations, that is something that has been a big contributor as well.
So let's talk about that. I think it's really interesting because I think as entrepreneurs, we've got this sense of urgency, which is like a gift and a curse at the same time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So taking that energy, that seemingly like I've got to get this done and everything's highest priority. How do you think developing that patience and taking a moment to step back and to evaluate something before you take action, how has that made you more productive?
What it helps on is in decision making primarily, and I was so touched by that experience, or the amount I learned from that experience is what I've written a book about. It's called The Magic of 2 Seconds. So this, though I write primarily about productivity and time management, one of the core areas that I write on my blog is also about decision making. And this is not about making big decisions where you're changing your career or you're finding a best opportunity to invest. So I primarily talk about little decisions, which is what you do on a daily basis. For example, if you take just 2 seconds to evaluate the task that you're working on, is it adding value to your long-term goals or not? Too often what we get caught up, like you said, right, entrepreneurs or anybody who is very keen about his career success, we just want to get things done, like one after the other. And we do get a lot done, but finally they contribute to nothing. Or maybe they contribute to something which we don't really care about, right? It might be some report that we generate on a daily basis, right? We're just doing it because of a force of habit, but we don't take the time to think if this report is bringing any actionable value out of it. So if you just take that 2 seconds to ask yourself before you begin a task, is this going to help my long-term goals? If yes, okay, do it. If not, okay, can I find a better time to do it? We cannot just skip every task that is coming our way because sometimes we do have to get things done, right? But finding the right time to do the right task is something that patience and taking that little 2 seconds of mindfulness will really help you with.
Absolutely. I like that. And I think whether it's that maybe 2 seconds is a little bit short, but but a minute, right? Maybe 60 seconds to ask yourself, as you said, I like that, is this the highest and best use of my time, or is this going to add to my long-term goals? Whatever quality question focuses you on what's the 20%, the most important thing that's going to get you 80% of the results. But I also think, and I talk a lot about, it's how people show up for their time, right? So even if you have to do, or that is the most important thing that you're going to work on, how can you do it most effectively? And if in that 60 seconds, you just get clear on what you're going to accomplish in that block of time and be a little bit more directed, it's going to give you greater attention in the moment, right? Have you more focused and have you more clear about what it is that you're going to achieve. So the way that you're going to show up for that block of time is going to be way more effective and powerful by taking that initial 60 seconds.
That's right.
I really like that. Now, you talked about your blog. So you're a big blogger, right? And so how do you, what's your favorite thing to write about? Like your biggest tip that you love to share?
I normally write tips around productivity. I also write about time management, as I said. So one of my favorite tips is not to look for productivity tips as generic advice, because that's what normally people do. Let's say somebody is suffering with not being able to get things done. They just try to go and look up, okay, what are the 10 productivity tips that I can implement and get started today. But productivity is what I feel, getting things done which you care about faster and more efficiently. And to do that, you have to be aware of what are your problems. For example, I might have a different problem. For example, like I said, my earlier problem was I used to get a lot of things done. I had no problem with motivation. I was not somebody who was lazy. I used to just keep doing things, and that would contribute to nothing. Right now, what I now do is I try to make sure I'm more aware of what I'm doing. So my problem was completely different. So somebody else's problem might be different. They might have a lot of time, but they might not have the idea of mapping it to their real goals. And for somebody else, it might be distractions, right? And my phone is beeping, somebody is screaming behind my back, and that is my problem. So if you have to really find what works for you, you have to identify your problem first and find a solution for it, than finding the 10 best productivity tips to follow, because not everything works for everybody, and everybody is unique. Everybody has their own style of working. Everybody has their own obstacles to overcome. So that's what that's not the only thing I write about, but that is something that I try to advocate. Most of the articles that I write, though there are listicles and stuff, I try to put in questions for people to ask themselves, is this really a problem? And if it doesn't work for you, it doesn't mean that you are not productive. It is just something that is not your problem and something that doesn't suit your style. Just try to find something which works for you and try to overcome the problem that you have and get things done which matter to you.
Absolutely. So what's your current challenge that you're working through in your area of productivity?
I still have a problem of going about a task for too long. Let's say I'm caught up on a task, or I'm really interested in doing it, and I'm in the state of flow, and I'm just, let's say I'm writing, right? I'm writing my blog post. I have other things to do, which is important as well. But I'm in the flow that I'm supposed to have finished this by an hour, and it has somehow prolonged, and I'm still going about it because I just want to get it done. So this is something that I'm trying to work on, and something that has helped me is time blocking. This is a concept that I'm sure anybody who is into time management would have heard. But I modify every technique that I read about and try to implement it for myself. For example, time blocking seems overwhelming for a lot of people. That is because the moment you read through it, the guide normally says that, hey, go schedule your entire calendar by blocks of 30 minutes or 1 hour. And it becomes difficult for most people to implement that. So what I implement is something which is a partial time blocking. I don't block my whole day by slots. I have specific blocks that I block through the day, which is only a few a day. So let's say, for example, the morning when I start my day, I spend 1 hour on writing content, and I spend the next 1 hour on learning something. So this is about blogging or writing. So I spend my time learning. So that's 2 hours done. So those are my time blocks. But beyond that, I don't have a block for the next 3 hours. So that is more like I check email, I get some work done, I get some things done, and then I have my blocks again. So that kind of enforces me to fix the problem of going about a task too long. And it doesn't get overwhelming as well because I'm not fixed my entire schedule, right? When it gets too much, you feel like, hey, let me just push one slot to another, and it just doesn't seem to align when you're done through the day. So that's what has helped me, I feel. And if people are overwhelmed with time blocking, I would recommend people to start with just a few blocks a day. Just have a couple of blocks a day, get started, make sure you follow them, and then build another block as and when you get comfortable. Don't try to schedule your entire day in one go when you have never done it before, right? So it is all of a sudden too much for your mind to digest and for your body to handle. So that's something that has really worked for me.
Right. We're such overachievers, right? Is that it's like, oh, we're going to try this time blocking thing. So I'm just going to go all in and I'm going to block everything. And then, like you said, it doesn't work. So it's good to bite off little pieces, get it to work for you, and then build on it. I totally agree with that. I always tell people also with time blocking is block the most important thing, one or two categories. And I block by category, not by task. So some people... do you block the task that you need to do, or do you block an overarching category that you can work within?
For me now, it has become sorry. Hey, Benny?
Did I lose you?
Yep. I think I just lost connection for a bit. So for me, what I do is my routine has been set such that my blocks, though you can call them categories, it has pretty much been a block which I do one task at a time, but it broadly still falls under a category. So if I have to categorize that, I spend 1 hour on writing, right? So it doesn't mean that I write only about blogging. I probably will write a part of my book as well. When I'm doing learning, I learn different components. So somewhere, yes, I do map categories, then specific tasks. And when there are ad hoc tasks, I leave a big block out so that I can fit whatever I want whenever the time suits best.
I like that flexibility. I think that that's what people think that's not part of time blocking. Is they think, it's so rigid, it's so structured.
Exactly.
They think there's no flexibility, and it's all in the way that we implement it, right? Like anything. So I agree, is we have to give ourselves flexibility. As a matter of fact, I think that people who are booked like event to event to event to event, like, or block to block to block, it's part of what creates so much stress for them. Is that there's no flexibility. There's, you feel like there's not really any wiggle room. I know if I start the day and my day is just jam packed and there's no free space, it immediately creates a little bit of that stress in me. Exactly. Like, when am I even going to have time to go to the bathroom? So I think that flexibility and leaving yourself blocks of free time to fill in the gap the way that you want is very, very important.
That's right.
So what would you say, people like tools and they like shortcuts. Do you have, like, what's your biggest, I want to ask you those two things. I'm going to separate them. What's your biggest shortcut that you use to make things easier for you or to get things done faster?
The shortcut is probably planning the day, is what I would say. It is. It's not really a shortcut. It's a simple tip to implement. For example, every day before I begin my day, I try to write down the few important things that I have to get it done by that day. And I write it down I still write it down on a paper or a notebook, and I keep it right on my desk so that it's a constant reminder of what is important for that day. And even if there's some ad hoc responsibility in between, I really have it right in front of me that I have to come back to this task and get it done. So that's something that has really helped me, and I still follow it. It's been years, and that's one of the simplest tips that has been most effective for me.
Awesome. And what are some tools that you love to use? That if you had to clear off your desktop, you just got a new phone or a new computer, what are the first apps that you would put on?
I just use. I'm not much of a tool guy. I keep it down to the basics. So I use the bare minimum tools. I have a to-do list that I use, which is synced up between my phone and my whatever device I use. It's all there. And I also use my calendar. So though it is set for meetings, right? I have multiple calendars within my calendar. And that is one of my biggest tool for managing time. So let's say, for example, I have a task which is pending. Let's say I have to follow up with somebody, or if I have to finish a task by this day, I have a milestone for a deadline. I put it as an all-day event on my calendar. Okay. So every time I go back and look at my calendar for meetings or stuff, it's already mapped in my head as to what is coming. I don't have to make a conscious effort to look for, okay, what is it that is due for this week? Because I'm always looking at my calendar and it's right there popping up saying that, hey, you have to finish this preparation maybe for this podcast by this date. Awesome. So that's pretty much what I just keep it simple, and I use a lot of pen and paper. Though technology has advanced, I'm into IT, but I'm a big believer of using pen and paper to note things down, to make mind maps. So I even have a board here. I don't know if you have spotted it. So I do a lot of drawing, and I still keep checklists on the board, which is written down. So I'm much still of a pen and paper guy, more of a traditional guy than a really big enthusiast of tools as such.
Well, I think it's a really important point, because I know a lot of people who spend a lot of time implementing tools and then getting the next tool because that tool is just not quite good enough, and it's just like this tool to the next tool, and it can be a huge investment of time. And really, to be productive, we need very few tools, and sometimes too many tools can have just the opposite effect, right? Of taking up unnecessary time trying to manage all these tools and sync them and, all those types of things. So I like certain tools. I think tools are important, but I also believe that we should keep them down to a minimum.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So is there anything else that you wanted to share with the group today?
Just one final thing that I would share is putting a value on time. That's something that I try to do on a daily basis. Normally what we do is we look at a day as, okay, I have my day ahead and I'm just going to go about it as it comes, right? But I really feel that every person should put a value on each hour of his time, whether it is, the parameter can be chosen by the person itself. It can be, you can put a monetary value on it, or you can put in terms of the number of hours that you get to spend with your family, or number of hours that you get to achieve your goal, which might be something really different. Maybe somebody wants to travel around the world, right? So for me, I'm much of a numbers guy and have a lot of financial goals as well. So I put a value on my time in terms of a number, in terms of, okay, how much is your hour's time worth? So if I have to take up a task which takes 1 hour of my time, I really just make one simple calculation. Okay, is it going to yield me this much of returns? It's not always about numbers or money, but when you have a comparison factor, it becomes very easy for you to make a decision saying that, hey, I shouldn't be spending more than an hour on this. It applies to little decisions as well. Let's say I'm going to a supermarket and there's a sale going on. There's no point trying to save 50 cents, trying to pick the best oatmeal and spend 15 minutes on it, right? Because you might have saved 50 cents, but you've actually lost money because you could have done something better in the same time. So find that factor of what you want to put your value on. It doesn't have to be money. And always make that decision in terms of weighing the time that you spend on the return that it is giving you. And if it's worth it, just do it. It makes your life and decision making a whole lot simpler.
I'm a firm believer in valuing your time. Part of my 7 steps of mastering time and time blocking, one of those steps is valuing your time. So I believe you that is, it's also a shortcut, right? If we were to think about
Absolutely,
it, because if you aren't thinking about what the value of your time is, then you're not really also looking at the opportunity cost. If I do this, and you said this pretty much, I'm just using different words. If I do this, what am I sacrificing? What am I not doing? And what does it cost to do that? Like, you mentioned the oatmeal. So I have an uncle who, when I was younger, he would drive 40 minutes to get this sale to save a couple of cents on, on soda. And then he would buy like cases of it. And then of course, every time we went to his house, it had no fizz because, so you have to think about that he was driving all that distance just to save a few cents. And then once he had so much of it, right, that it wasn't the quality anymore. So we really have to think about the choices that we're making and whether they're smart choices. And it comes down to the value of our time. So if you're listening, what's the value of your time? What number would you put on the value of your time? And how do you value the tasks that come across your if you're an entrepreneur, what are you willing to delegate because you know that someone else can do it? Maybe they can't do it as 100% as good as you do, but if they can do 80% and it's good enough, wouldn't that be worth, depending on the value of the task, for you to hand it over? How do you feel, Maxim, about delegation? And then we'll wrap up the show. What do you delegate? What are the things that you delegate?
I try to delegate most of the stuff rather, which stops me from doing some of the creative work or where I can actually add my input. So what I do is I have a person who handles some of my blogging effort. I have done it for a long time in terms of me doing it myself. Let's say, for example, creating Pinterest pins, right? That's something which is important for blogging, but it is a big investment of time. So you have to create a pin, make it good looking, put content from your blog out there. It's not that it's about dignity of labor or not doing that thing, I feel, hey, this is not a good investment of my time. It's more like when I free up that time, I get more time to do things like forming content for my blog or writing content for my book. So that's where I believe I can add more value. So that's where I try to focus on. So I delegate things like this. I delegate most of the admin work, most of the research work. Let's say, for example, we have to do keyword research, right? So it is easier for somebody to go look into a tool like SEMrush or Ahrefs and find out which keywords are volume and give me a set of keywords, and I can think about, hey, I can add good content on this topic. So that's where I focus my time on. But I do a lot of editing myself. I still do, even if I can give it to somebody else to edit my content, even on Grammarly or a simple tool like Hemingway. I feel it adds value for me because it improves my writing. Every time Grammarly or any tool for that matter shows you, oh, this was a mistake, it becomes a correction in your head to tell that, hey, I have to do it right next time. And over a period of time, it really cuts short the effort of the other person as well, if you're collectively thinking as a team. And it also makes you grow and improve your skill. So I'm a big believer of delegation, and I really believe if somebody is interested to do a job, they should take it up and get all the credit for it as well, rather than somebody else doing it and taking all the limelight.
Absolutely. And it's, limelight, when you're working together as a team, right? Great leaders want to give the limelight to other people. So, but what I was thinking about as you were talking about, you delegate, somebody else can do the research for the keywords and different things. Some things lead themselves that they're, you can describe them, the steps, that first you do this and then you do that. And so when there's an easy process and a set of steps that someone can do, those are repeatable and those are easy to give to someone else and have them repeat them for you and say, here's what you should have at the end of the day. So here are the deliverables, and you set some milestones in there for you to check in and see if there's any questions and how they're doing. And then you've just freed up your time. So those things really lead themselves to be easy to delegate, as if there's a simple process that they can follow.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, tell us, where can we find your blog and other information about you? And, if there's anything else you want to share, go ahead and share it now.
Perfect. So you can find me on my blog, which is called productiveclub.com. So as I said, I cover 3 areas: productivity, time management, and decision making. Right now, I'm doing an experiment of sorts where I'm having time management consultation with people. I provide it for free. I just go on a 3-week session with them, which is spread across where I have one meeting every week for 30 minutes. I talk to them, try to understand the problems. I open a Google spreadsheet for them, and I write down what their challenge was, and I give them some pointers to try. It's not that this problem is going to be solved by trying this. It's more like implement and tell me. So it becomes like a feedback loop where people gain from the tips that I give, and I gain from them because I get to understand what are the different problems that each person is facing and what has worked and not worked, right? So that helps me write better content as well. Instead of just writing, 5 tips to follow, it tells me that, hey, this person had faced something like this. So if you have this problem, why don't you try this? Maybe it will help you overcome that problem. So that's pretty much what I have. I think it was really nice talking to you, Penny. It was a very interesting conversation as well.
Well, thank you. And thank you all for being here. I hope that you have, we talked about a couple of different really important things today. So I'm hoping that at least one of them was really valuable to you to think about how you're doing it and step back. That was the first thing that we talked about, and take 60 seconds or whatever it is to plan your day, to plan your block, and step back and see which one of these could be relevant for you right now. Could it be time blocking and something that you could do in the area of time blocking to improve your time management? Could it be in the area of valuing your time and being able to see more about what you're doing and decide on, using that as a decision-making criteria on deciding what's the best use of your time? Or maybe it's in the area of delegation that we talked about here at the end, that maybe there are some things that you could delegate that you've been holding on to that would really make a big difference to free up that time for more creativity, for looking for new clients, or even to spend on yourself and have some quality time with yourself or with your family. So thank you for being here. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We'll see you in the next episode.